Well, good morning, everyone. And again, thank you for joining us this morning. I think at least the weather in the Chicagoland area is cooperating enough to make it feel like fall and winter are on their way. So what we want to do this morning is to talk about the winter farmers markets and the guidance that is coming down, and also talk about some potential next steps. So first, just a little bit about the Illinois Farmers Market Association. The Farmers Market Association works with a variety of partners and partnerships in order to promote farmers markets, to provide best practices and training for farmers market managers and vendors, and then to advocate for farmers markets, maybe addressing some of the barriers that farmers markets face, trying to ensure that farmers markets are successful for the market management, but also for the vendors and especially for the consumers. We do have some great partnerships with the through the Illinois Farm Bureau and Market Maker. We are part of the Connect Fresh Collaborative, which is an online database system that allows multiple access points. So for example, you can access the information from specialty growers or farmers market association, or now Buy Fresh, Buy Local, so that we all are sharing the same database, same place. Hopefully it decreases the number of places you have to go as someone that has a profile, and gives us an opportunity to market these particular things more easily and more effectively. If you don't already have a profile on Market Maker, I highly recommend it. You can find the link through ILFMA.org on the map of Illinois markets, and you can go ahead and set up your Market Maker account. Now, especially during COVID-19, it has been really key to make sure that your profiles and the information about your market are up to date and current, because the situation has been fluid, it has been changing. Maybe market hours are different, maybe your vendor mix is different than it was before. So please go in and update the information within Market Maker as often as you need to. You can update it multiple times a day if you want, or at least each time some sort of major change happens with your market. We also have the What's in Season app, which you can download from our ILFMA.org website. And this gives you information about farmers markets, the details, as well as showing what's in season based on the zip code that you enter. So it's a great consumer tool, but it's also just a great way for anybody that's looking for a farmer's market to find out the details and the information. This is the database that's found in Market Maker in app form. Now, unfortunately, we did not have the resources necessary to put it in the App Store with either Android or Apple. So it has to be downloaded from the ILFMA website. And we're very pleased that the Illinois Farmers Market Association is part of a 10 organization collaborative, Buy Fresh, Buy Local Illinois. And highly recommend that if you are a farmer's market or a vendor, that you participate and identify yourself as a Buy Fresh, Buy Local partner as well. Again, you go in through Market Maker and you're able to then select different affiliations. If you're an ILFMA member, you can select ILFMA. If you are interested in affiliating with Buy Fresh, Buy Local, you can also do that through Market Maker. The Farmers Market Association saw the need to create a network of farmers market managers, and so there is now a Facebook group available to farmers market managers and vendors to try and give a space for questions and best practices to be shared directly from one market to the next or one vendor to the next. And it's a great place to ask your questions and to get answers from your colleagues from across the state. So if you're not part of that, all you have to do is search for this on Facebook. It is a closed group, so you do have to be approved for membership, but it should happen very quickly once you select that you would like to be a part of the group, as long as you answer the couple questions that are required. One of the things that we've been very pleased with is that the Illinois Farmers Market Association received a grant from Compure Financial to try and offset the costs of COVID-19 to farmers markets. It's a small grant that is available. There is still a very small amount of funding left, but what also is available is technical assistance. So if you would like to talk to myself or a member of our ILFMA board about some of the challenges that you're facing as a market, when you want to talk about marketing or winter markets or whatever the case may be, this is an opportunity for you to connect with the Farmers Market Association. You can go to our website and you will see information there. So what have we been doing in 2020? Well, I don't know about you, but I'm sure we're all kind of at the point where 2020 seems like it's a million years long, but yet it's also moving very quickly. So in the very beginning of COVID-19, as initial stay-at-home orders and executive orders were crafted by the governor's office, we worked to ensure that farmers markets were considered essential. We've been working on toolkits for each phases of operation within the Restore Illinois plan. We've been definitely talking about farmers markets as food access opportunities rather than special events. We've been talking a lot about farmers markets and their benefits. If you haven't seen the 10-part series on why farmers markets, it's available on Facebook. I highly recommend that you go and you look at that because it tells all the tremendous benefits that you get from shopping at a farmer's market. We are still working with partners to address the barriers to using your SNAP online for farmers market purchases. SNAP online benefits can be used for purchases, but it's restricted to Amazon and Walmart. And so that's why we've been working with partners to see if we can expand that to include farmers markets. So here we are, winter farmers markets, that's the next thing. Actually, we've been really pleased to see that in the last few years that winter farmers markets have been probably the fastest growing segment of farmers markets across the state. It seems like communities are very well established with their current summer market, but we're seeing an increase in the number of winter markets being offered, or we were seeing an increase. On the ILFMA.org website, there is the COVID-19 toolkit to, like I said, guide you through each phase of the Restore Illinois plan as it relates to farmers markets. This is just an example of some of the resources that ILFMA has published during this season. This talking about, in visual form, the limited touches that food at a farmer's market typically has versus what's available through the traditional supply chain. But one of the things that we really want to go back and encourage is that last slide is true if in fact the products sold at the farmer's market are local. And there is actually a statute on the book, although there's no enforcement outlined, that requires items sold at a farmer's markets to identify their origin. So for most people, that's the name of their farm that they put on a banner or someplace in their booth, and they show that that's where the product is from. But if in fact you have products that are not from that particular farm, or the vendor has multiple sources of their product, then identifying each product would be a requirement. We've been really pleased to see farmers markets take off. Those that opened have reported great sales. Many of the vendors at the farmers markets are telling me that they're seeing more sales than they have in previous years. And the outdoor atmosphere of a farmer's market tends to be one of the healthier opportunities for food procurement. This is a quote from an epidemiologist from Drexel University School of Public Health. Drexel is just outside of Philadelphia, but just to really emphasize how great the shopping at a farmer's market during COVID-19 has been up until now. We have also put together, I think the biggest thing that we hear from market managers is that mask enforcement is really a challenge, and that some communities it's more difficult than others, but these were some of the visuals that we put together to try and communicate the importance in a fun and light-hearted kind of way of wearing your mask. That when you wear a mask, you're showing your love and support for your farmer, your farmer's market, but masks are required. All right. One of the things that it would be helpful to us, and maybe you all can use the chat while we're talking here. Certainly you can ask questions in the chat, and Lori will let me know that there are questions when we kind of come to the end. But if you are planning on a winter farmer's market, could you let us know the name of that market and the zip code where it is located? That's the kind of information that we would like to have available to us. If you had a market in 2019 and you're not sure about 2020, you can also include any of that information as well. We're trying to gain some data on markets that were opened and whether they're going to open in 2020 or whether we have new markets and new opportunities that are planning on opening during 2020. So phase 4, just in general, was released in June of 2020. And these were the highlights. Masks are required. All practices must support social distancing. You have to clearly communicate with your customer base in particular about what's expected. And of course, using enhanced sanitation. So again, here, are you planning a winter market? Please go ahead and put that information in the chat, and we will be assembling a list of farmers markets that are planning winter markets. All right. Now, one of the things that happened in March through May of this year is we saw a lot of resilience, a lot of farmers markets moving forward despite some of the early restrictions of COVID-19 with drive-through markets. We saw a number of those come online. We saw pre-orders and online orders being introduced to many markets, especially ones that didn't have it before. We saw touchless curbside pickup. We saw all sorts of different models come into play until it got into the summer season and until some of the restrictions became just a little bit easier to navigate. This picture actually is from a winter farmers market in New York City. It was taken pre-COVID, as you can tell. It was taken in February. And there are many markets across the country, even in colder climates, that operate year-round outside. So what's going to happen in 2021? Well, we do have the option of indoor markets with restrictions, potential to maintain the outdoor season. Again, going to pre-orders and online orders and curbside pickup as an option as well. Now, typically what has happened when the Farmers Market Association has put together these Restore Illinois guidance packets, I have tried to research what's required at the state level, look at other states and see that are managing COVID similarly to Illinois, and look at the kind of guidance that they're putting out. And then we have reached out to the Illinois Department of Public Health, and they have vetted and supported the guidance. And then the Illinois Department of Agriculture has also supported the guide, has reviewed and supported the guidance and then published it as well. So that's typically what has happened. And as we were coming into this winter season, reached out to Department of Health, and we were kind of working down the path that we would view farmers markets as indoor retail, which would be like a grocery store. But during this last week, Department of Health deferred to the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and They have added some new guidance to our farmers market operations. But then, of course, there's also your local jurisdiction. Now, what ILFMA writes is guidance. Your state and local jurisdictions have final say on the way that you operate. So we've just tried to take what we see, what has been written at the state level, and then try and put it into farmers market terms. But it should be consistent with what you see at the state level. But then again, your local jurisdictions can add restrictions, or they can't be any less strict than the state, but they can add restrictions that are not at the state level. All right, so I'm going to show. All right. I'm going to try and pull this up. All right, did I do that successfully? Can you now see the Phase 4 indoor farmers market guidelines?
Yes.
Okay, good. I always worry about that when you're doing these kinds of calls. But as you can see that these are draft guidelines. I still have questions about outdoor farmers markets moving forward that have not yet been answered. And so I'm going to, we will update this guidance as we have more information. All right. But there are definitely some new things to consider. A lot of these things actually, well, for example, under market management, one of the things is to ensure the health of everybody participating in the market. So farmers markets should establish a wellness screening program and require all vendors, volunteers, and staff to participate in a market day wellness screening. Typically that is answering a couple of questions about the fact that you are not showing symptoms of COVID, or generally not feeling well as being subject to a temperature check. Now, those temperature checks could be done at the market, but they could also be done at home before leaving for the market and just recorded and documented so that if the farmers market manager wanted to see those, that is some information that could be provided. So customer guidelines, again, you'll see the things that have a little asterisk after them. These are things that were taken directly from the commerce guidance. What changed between June and now in these guidance documents from the state is that we were working on the assumption that farmers markets were considered essential. And now in the new phase of Phase 4 guidelines released by the Department of Commerce, essential businesses are no longer called out. So it is the type of business that you do. And so the Department of Commerce has aligned farmers markets with flea markets. So there is specific guidance that has been updated as of the 25th of September that the Department of Commerce published that has given us very specific guidelines on how a flea market would operate, and that's where a farmer's market falls. So the general guidelines, again, face coverings are required at all times over the nose and mouth per state guidelines. Social distancing must be maintained between non-related people, I guess. We should be doing a little more with enforcement. We should have employees or volunteers monitoring the venue to ensure social distancing and wearing face coverings. And then also communicating clearly with our customers and maybe our vendors through signage about what is expected. And outside of market day, making sure that you are communicating with your customer base and your vendors to ensure that they know what is expected. So we can't fault our customers for not following the recommendations that we're putting out if they don't know what they are. And so that's really a really important key. So making sure that information is accessible so that if somebody's considering coming to the market, they have that information available to them, maybe from your website, or we see social media as being really, really key in this. Go ahead and publish that information. Customer guidelines have not changed significantly. Don't come if you're sick. Wear your face coverings at all times. Maintain your social distance. Use touchless payments if possible. Don't touch the products. This, again, is a lot of trying to maintain social distance. If people are touching and moving through a farm stand or a booth, social distance is increasingly difficult to maintain, but it also just ensures the integrity of the product. Reusable bags are not recommended. And then, of course, just wash everything once you get it home. Now, in addition to the retail guidelines that are published by the Department of Commerce, there's a link to those at the bottom of this page, and you should go through them and read them. So this is kind of a layered process. There are the retail guidelines, which farmers markets would fall under, but then there are special additional guidelines that the Department of Commerce has said farmers markets should follow. So the first is about capacity. And so the capacity of an indoor market should not exceed 25% or 15 people per 1,000 square feet. So that is key. As you read the retail guidance, you'll see, for example, grocery stores are at 50%. So this would be an additional requirement that is for farmers markets that does not apply to groceries. I think it's really key. This is that we would monitor attendance to ensure compliance with capacity limits. Booths should be spaced the lesser of every third spot or 30 feet apart. That's significantly wider than the previous farmers market guidance, which I think was 10 feet. Indoor markets should open windows and doors to allow fresh air flow. So capacity is a big change from the previous guidance. General guidelines, again, face coverings, really, really key. Farmers markets should be monitoring to ensure that your customers are social distancing and wearing face coverings. Communicate the expectations. One of the reasons that farmers markets are put in the category of flea market, it's not about the products we sell. I was told it was about the infrastructure. If you think about retail, retail has specific infrastructure. It has set aisles, it has set checkouts, whereas a farmer's market only has those items if we create them. And so again, to try and remain as diligent toward the guidance as possible and to meet the expectations that are being put out here, it's really important to create entrances and exits that are separate and to create one-way aisles so that your customer base knows which way to go, they can maintain social distance, and there's not just weaving in and out of the marketplace. Farmers markets will have hand sanitizer available upon entering, so that you would expect every person that comes into your farmers market, into the indoor space, to use hand sanitizer before entering into the aisles within the farmers market. Now, these capacity limits, again, will limit the number of vendors that you can have inside. So prioritizing food, agriculture, and essential household product type vendors, I think, is important. And again, kind of going back to earlier restrictions that we saw earlier in the year, because of this limited capacity, you would only encourage households to send one member of their household at a time where possible. Now we know that's not always possible. Somebody may need an assist in shopping, but where possible, we're trying to discourage multiple members of a family unit from coming to the market at a time. Again, recognizing that we do have vulnerable populations that live within our community, it would be advised to set up specific shopping times for those vulnerable populations where they feel potentially the most safe. That would be something that could be recommended. We've seen that done effectively before market. So maybe the half hour before the typical opening of the farmer's market. We've also seen it at the end of the day with some extended vulnerable population hours being offered at the end of the market. Again, no cooking demonstration, no testers or samples. And if a farmer's market offers food and beverage, then it has to be, they have to follow the indoor dining guides. It would be the recommendation of the Farmers Market Association that all food should just be in the grab and go capacity, so that it is just in and out and that there are no places to sit and eat. Again, that takes up capacity space that could be used by other vendors. It could be, it asks people to linger, which we are not asking them to do. So we would recommend that you just have everything be grab and go. Vendor operations, again, you have to use some sort of impermeable barrier, such as plexiglass, to keep you away from the vendor, away from the customer. Or as we had recommended from the very beginning, the booth layout is an empty table at the front of the booth with table and products behind it. So this enforces social distancing and it puts the products out of the reach of the customer. So again, the vendor is back and the products are then transferred over a table, and it keeps social distance for the vendor, between the vendor and the customer. If possible, touchless transactions. If not, clean the transaction equipment between each, after each transfer. If possible, wherever possible, have different people handling products or payment. And if that's not possible, then asking the vendor to wash or sanitize between each transaction. Okay. Then clean and disinfect common areas that are touched by multiple people at least every 2 hours by the recommended procedures and cleaners from the EPA. Follow the market guidelines for link tokens, nutrition incentives, and other nutrition assistance coupons that have to be handled by multiple people. All right. So then at the bottom here, what we did is we added links to all of these market all of the resources that you might need for running the market. So there's the flea market guidance, there's the phase 4 retail guidance, there's how to wear a mask, how to build a portable hand washing station, what sanitizers are actually considered appropriate. Since COVID started, we've had a number of sanitizers recalled, and we want to make sure that they meet a certain percentage of alcohol content, and those are listed, what cleaning products are recommended, and then what procedures need to be used as well. So that those are the types of things that have been added to this. Now this is indoor markets. As I said, we will be publishing the outdoor markets once I get some further clarification, but it is likely that the capacity limits will also apply to outdoor markets, not just indoor markets. Okay. Lori, do we have any questions?
I think we have a couple here. So if you do have any questions, please go ahead and put them into the chat box and we'll get them answered now. So the first one is going to be from Christina. Will market staff need to take temperatures of customers that enter the indoor market if we're taking vendor temps as well?
I think that is something we may go back and addend. I read this afterwards, and I think you could certainly take temperatures, that would be fine, but you could also just ask wellness questions. Are you feeling well today? Any symptoms, X, Y, and Z, and then you could let them into the market. But I think because these indoor markets will have capacity limits, there will need to be somebody greeting people at the door, ensuring that they have face coverings in place and being worn properly, that they use the hand sanitizer that's provided. And so that next level is actually something that would be covered in the retail guidance under external interactions. And so I would say it doesn't have to be a temperature, but it would certainly be best to just ask the wellness questions.
That's a good idea. Okay. One other one, I think.
It protects the market as well as the, it just protects the market. The other thing that ILFMA is working on that we didn't quite get done is an addendum to your market, to your vendor agreement that talks about what is required if in fact there is some sort of COVID exposure, whether it's, you have it, you've been exposed to it, what kind of reporting is required to the farmers market as well as to local health. And in that, we are going to add the wellness screening piece so that, your vendor agrees that anybody they bring to market, they do the wellness screening with prior to getting to the market on market day. And then we will add something about the wellness screening of customers to the market guidance.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think you've already addressed this, but I'm going to ask it again. The outdoor guidelines, when will they be released?
I would hope this week. I'm looking forward to that, but I just want to get further clarification before we release them.
Okay. Those are all the questions that I have in the chat box. So if there are any more, we'll give them another minute or so. Another question, will outdoor guidelines just be for winter season?
I think that will have, one of the things that keeps being stressed in all the documents that I've been reading from Commerce state that capacity guidelines will be reviewed and analyzed throughout, from here to when we don't work, till we're in phase 5, whenever that is. And so I think for now we would say it's just into the future, and we don't know a date or a time on that. But they do say that they will be analyzing and making further recommendations moving forward.
Okay. I still do not have any other questions right now at this time.
Okay.
Give it another second or so.
While you do that, let me go back here. All right. If you don't have any more questions, Lori, I have a couple next steps that I would like to share with the people that are on the call. One is, like I said, we will send out a newsletter when the document is finalized. It moves from draft to, its final form. And we will also talk about the indoor and outdoor guidance at that time. When COVID-19 hit, we sent in partnership with the Illinois Specialty Growers Association, a survey to vendors asking them what would be the impact if in fact farmers markets did not open during what we were thinking was the 2020 summer season. But we would like to do that again. And so we would ask your partnership in distributing a survey that we will put together that asks about the effects of potentially not having a winter market or having this limited capacity during the winter market season on your vendors. And so we will be sending that out. Likewise, in that newsletter, if you don't subscribe to our newsletter, at the bottom of the page at ilfma.org, on any page, it says subscribe. So I really encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter. The other thing is that the Farmers Market Coalition is putting together a survey to ask market managers what has the effect of COVID-19 been on market managers. And so we will also give you that link so that you can participate in that survey. Market managers have shared that they feel their markets are at risk because they may have fewer vendors, they may have fewer sponsors, the costs of running a farmer's market have been increased, and so all of those kinds of things have played into the farmer's market, running a farmer's market during 2020. I think this is just I'll tell you a little story on myself, but I think it's key. And that is, I went to a farmer's market this weekend, probably no surprise to any of you, but at the farmer's market, I noticed the person directly in front of me doing things that I would not recommend. And I said something, and I said something. And then afterwards, I kept thinking, oh, I shouldn't have said something. Maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. And I shared the story with my daughter, and we were talking about it, and she said, Mom, you just need to get your East Coast on. And I'm originally from the East Coast, and in the East Coast, we're pretty forward. You see somebody who doesn't have their mask on right, you see somebody breaking into line in front of you, you say something. She said, we Midwesterners are just too nice. And so I think one of the things that will really play into successful farmers markets moving forward is enforcement, and it is a sticky subject. It's not something we like to do. It's not something our vendors like to do, but it is necessary. And I think it's like with our, like in raising a family, I always found that if I was pretty tough, I didn't have to say much. But if I got a little loosey-goosey, then all of a sudden I needed to do a lot of disciplining, and I didn't like that. And so kind of call out the city of Chicago. I think they've done an excellent job this summer season. They have actually sent some representatives to farmers markets. They have had cordial conversations with market vendors about following the rules that are required. And I think it has led to just a really great atmosphere because the customers feel safe, and that's one of the main reasons our customers come to us, is because they're looking for a safe alternative to going to some of the retail outlets. But it also gives us an opportunity to ensure that our markets are being run in the best way possible. So whatever that looks like. I know it's tricky, but at the same time, I think it's a necessary part. And maybe with the indoor markets, having a set in and out will actually be helpful, because then you can have a conversation with people as they begin to enter the market. And then you do have people throughout the market potentially that can remind people of the behaviors that are required. So probably not just enough to put the information out there, but my guess is that if you are kind and cordial, remind people, communicate with them, you will have a very positive response from the customer base and from the vendors as well. But I think that's important. That's an important piece that will be increasingly important to fight for the opportunity to operate farmers markets. And I think that's what's at stake here, is we really do want to operate farmers markets during this season. We want to see winter markets be successful. We want to see summer markets for 2021 be successful as well. And I know that, I've heard from a lot of market managers that is in particular, mask enforcement or social distancing enforcement, all of those kinds of things have been a struggle. But I think if we work together on that, we can see some better outcomes. Any other questions for us, Lori?
No, no other questions in the chat box at this time. Let's see. But there is one here. Grocery stores allow reusable bags now, as well as customers picking their own produce. Why is it stricter for farmers markets?
Yeah. The reusable bag actually comes from I believe that comes from a state level guidance. Again, as a farmers market association, we are making a recommendation, and that may be stricter than what's required from the state about, touching produce or whatever. But as we talked about it, and as we talked to vendors, we had kind of a split. We had a number of vendors that were frustrated with that rule, but we also had a whole lot of vendors that really appreciated that rule. And so we decided to keep it in the guidance. And again, it is not a law. It is not something that is totally required, but that if you look across the country to state level guidance from a wide variety of states that are managing COVID similarly to Illinois, you will see the keeping produce out of reach or keeping product out of reach of customers is a common practice. So we decided to keep it.
All right. I believe that's the last question in the box at this time. Any final words you want to mention, Jane?
No, and just say stay tuned. We are, like I said, in process. We will be coming out with the final guidance and then also with the addendum for vendors to sign to participate in markets that allow a little more control on knowing what's expected. I think if you were to have a vendor that ended up with COVID, they may not know exactly what the next step is. And this way it's outlined. And I think that provides, again, communication, which is very positive, but it also would help you with knowing what your responsibility is as well.
Okay. I believe that is all that we have. I just want to make sure. Yep. I just want to make one announcement that we have. Next week, October 7th, the Illinois Farmers Market Association and University of Illinois Extension will be presenting a webinar that is called A Miniature Farm with Big Goals. So this is a farm in rural Mount Carroll, Illinois that has grown from a small home garden and a specialty grower into a farm that now has a signature horseradish jam. They have expanded into the downtown with a USDA production kitchen and a new Main Street storefront. And so next week we will be talking with the couple on how they got started, what their journey's been, and what goals do they have from this point going forward. So anybody that is interested or is looking to diversify or grow their farm business, I think this would be an excellent webinar to join us with. So feel free to contact the Illinois Farmers Market Association or myself at University of Illinois Extension to obtain the registration information if you don't have it. Other than that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And hopefully we will see you at our next ILFMA webinar. Thank you very much and have a great day.